Men and women of Reddit who caught their significant others cheating, how did you do that? And what was your reaction? AskReddit. Went for my yearly checkup and tested positive for chlamydia. Turns out my ex was sleeping around. Edit, apparently false positives are common with these types of tests, so have yours so tested as well. I hope you're in a relationship where you can openly talk about such things. This happened to me too. Then my ex faked a doctor's note with the words negative, yet he was still prescribed antibiotics, just in case. Little did I know that everyone and their mom advises to never take antibiotics unless you really need them. Also, the condom in his wallet was missing, but he insisted he used it with me. I was on the pill. Edit, to clarify, I live in BC, Canada, and my experience with doctors and walk-in clinics is they seldomly prescribe you meds unless you have a confirmed diagnosis. It's extremely inconvenient, but let's say I come in with suspected strep, I'll have to take a test, wait for the results, and then make a second appointment to pick up a prescription if the results are positive. I was 8 months pregnant with our second child at the time, and he wanted to go visit his brother for the weekend. I asked my doctor if it was safe for me to travel, and she said it would be fine. I told my husband I could go, but he said he was really hoping to just have some time with his brother. I understood because a new baby really makes it hard to spend quality time, but I asked if he could take our older son, 3 at the time, so he could see his grandma and cousins. He said they were planning on drinking and whatnot and wasn't sure it would be a good idea. They're country boys, so things shooting, drinking and whatnot. I agreed and he left for the weekend. After he left, I get a call from his best friend telling me that he'll be in town for the weekend and he wanted to meet up. Not weird he called me because my husband was terrible at answering his phone. I told him unfortunately my husband was visiting back home, bad timing. His best friend then said okay, I'm going to call you back, and hung up very abruptly. Turns out my husband and his wife had been caught by him a few months previously, and he gave them a chance to make it right. I don't know why. He didn't tell me, but threatened to if they didn't stop. Well, they didn't stop, and he told me. I think the worst part was that my husband's family knew and never once thought to tell me. These people were my family for 5 years and nothing. It's been almost 10 years now, and I'm so much happier, but it was definitely an eye-opening experience. June 1, 2018. Normal day. A Friday. My husband had kissed me goodbye and gone to work. I was cleaning the house for company who was coming to stay the weekend. The doorbell rang. There was a man at my door who introduced himself as the husband of a woman who my husband worked with. He was there to tell me that my husband and his wife were having an affair. He had busted them about 6 months prior and had told his wife that she had to end the affair. He thinks that she did end it for about 3 months, but then they started up again. When he found out they were at it again, he called my husband because he knew if he confronted him in person, he'd be in a jail cell for what he'd have done. On the phone, he told my husband to leave his wife alone or else he would come and tell me everything that was happening. Apparently, my husband thought that he was bluffing. So I was literally the last to know. My husband never came home again. He got an Airbnb and a lawyer. The divorce was December 21, 2018. We had been together for 24 years. Still hurts. 24 years? Then to just throw it all away. This is the most heartbreaking one I read. I hope you are doing well, and don't think about this scumbag too much. 4 years ago I was dating a girl who became distant and disinterested in a lot of things we both enjoyed together. Despite attempts to talk about it, she only grew more distant, then became less available to hang out, and suddenly was working late a lot. I started getting suspicious about cheating when she was on her phone non-stop. Again I tried to talk about it, but she wouldn't engage. She also just didn't want to break up with me for whatever reason. I was actually going to end it on my own, but one weekend when she was seemingly unavailable, some mutual friends told me they spotted her with a dude from her work, and they were all over each other. Coincidentally, she had also lent me her iPad, and it was synced to her phone, so I saw lots of texts between those two over that weekend. They were talking about running away together, etc. He was married and her supervisor. Mutual friends were also compassed of her coworkers and reported them to HR. They were both forced to do training on not sleeping with coworkers, they were both denied promotion, his wife left him, and she moved overseas. Sucked at the time, I was devastated, but karma got them good. The husband of one of the women he was cheating on me with called me at work. At first I didn't believe him and hung up. How could the man I spent the past 8 years with, had 2 beautiful babies with, suffered together the loss of one of those children, do something so hurtful? Still, a part of me had doubt. He had affairs and other relationships, and we had a rocky patch early in the beginning, where I suspected an affair but didn't have proof. I told my boss I felt sick and had to leave early, and I called this guy back and found out that my ex and his wife, along with one of their friends, were all sleeping together for about a year. He had confronted my ex and told him that he was going to tell me, but my ex convinced him to wait a month, since my mother had just died. I took my time coming home and confronted him and told him to pack and leave. Since I've pieced together a lot of what happened and all the lies he told me, where if I was in a different headspace, I might have caught on to the affairs earlier. I also found videos hidden on one of our computers and found out he was having booty calls in our apartment while I was at work, and he was watching our daughter. At that point it put the headstone on any possibility of reconciliation. I caught my ex sexting a chick and telling her how he missed her on my birthday. I was young at the time and reacting with crying and yelling. If it ever happened now, I would just get up and leave. No point in trying to mend the relationship, because it's near impossible to gain the trust that was lost. Edit, spelling error. Same shit happened to me, and did the same. More so cried, and for some reason wished he'd beg, pleaded to make things better. He didn't that day and I left. Fast forward 2 weeks, and he was begging for me back. Got back together 2 months later, only for it to end a couple weeks later. As you said, once the trust is gone, it's never the same. We got married when I was 17, and he was 21. He was shipping off to sea, and I was escaping a bad home life. When he came back after his deployment, he wasn't the same person anymore. After about 6 months, he gained weight on purpose to fail his physicals, so he'd get kicked out of the Navy. Fast forward a year, I'm working full-time, and he is sitting at home, watching anime and drinking during the day, and telling me that he was applying to jobs. I was applying to universities when my laptop died on me. I asked to use his to finish an app, and while doing so a message popped up on his FB. A topless pic of his ex, from her. I was shocked and opened it to find that they'd been dating for a long time, started again while he was at sea in the Navy. He would talk to her and never to me, saying that he never got the time to email. She had sent him a pic because he had said how he missed having big tits like hers to play with, and how mine were just too small, so he felt like he was fucking a boy or a child. I confronted him, he made a bunch of pitiful excuses. I had my friends come to the house that day and kick him out while I went to work. He then stalked me for the next few years and made posts on his FB about how I was a coward. He sent emails and called from blocked numbers to tell me that a restraining order is just a piece of paper, or that our vows before God made me his property and shit like that. Then he bought a gun and started telling our friends that if he can't have me, no one can. I ended up talking to our friends and told everyone conflicting information about where I was going and moved states. I deleted all my personal social media accounts and lived in fear for years, watching him continually make memes about how he loved his wife and would do anything for her. It took 8 years for me to finally get the divorce from him. I had my suspicions, but it was her who ended up telling me. I went into the relationship thinking, wow, I don't deserve this girl, way out of my league. She couldn't help but remind me how much better he was several times, and made sure to rub it in my face. My reaction was a spiral into deep depression. For someone that has very low self-esteem, being cheated on is one of the worst feelings. It feels like it confirms all your worst thoughts about yourself. I felt the same way out of my league about my ex, but believe me dude, fuck that shit, there is nothing as way out of your league. I stopped thinking I was lucky to date beautiful women and instead started thinking, getting a beautiful woman and not a big deal for me, and that changed a lot of things, and real life happened as I imagined. You act how you think, remember that. I caught my wife after she passed away from cancer. Worst feeling ever. Caught between unending love, mourning and absolute anger. How did you find out? Her phone that she was overly protective of is how I found out. A week before she passed her and I took the passwords off her phone so I could respond to her texts and take care of her business. After she passed, maybe a week or two after, I explored her phone and found numerous texts, emails and sexting. How the hell did she find the time and energy while dying from fucking cancer? I'm so sorry, but I did read your other comments, and I'm glad you're doing better these days. I'm just like, but how? She didn't know she had cancer. From day of diagnosis it took 2 months for the cancer to take her. That's incredibly frightening. I'm so sorry about all of it. I was at work and tried to call my boyfriend, but he wasn't answering even after a few hours, and I just got a horrible feeling. It stressed me out so badly for some reason that I started to cry and my boss let me go home. The whole way home I just kept feeling serious dread. Walked in the house and into my bedroom, and he was laying in bed half clothed with some naked chick. Obviously a huge blow-up went down, and after everything settled, this motherfucker tried to tell me that he went to the movies alone and met her there, and she followed him home. Like, even if I believe that this person just followed you home and got naked, you let her do it, so what's the purpose of saying that to me? It was a shitty abusive relationship, and it didn't even end then. I eventually broke up with him, but not on the spot like I should have. If I could change anything about my life, it would be that I wish I broke up with that guy sooner. That was over 10 years ago though. Edit. Your responses are fucking hilarious. I have never laughed so much about this situation.